Welcome back to Football History TV, the place where we don't just talk about the game, we talk about the moments that change it forever. If you love football history, legendary rivalries, and the what-if stories that make this sport so special, make sure you're subscribed and have that notification bell turned on, because today's story might be one for the history books before we've even finished filming it. Let's get into it. Right now, as we speak, an 18-year-old kid from a working-class neighborhood outside Barcelona is one match away from doing something no player in the history of football has ever done. Not Pelé, not Maradona, not Messi, not Ronaldo. Lamine Yamal is 90 minutes away from becoming a World Cup champion at 19 years old, and if it happens, we are not just watching a football story anymore. We are watching the birth of the greatest legend the sport has ever produced. So today, we ask the question, what if Lamine Yamal wins the World Cup? To understand how big this moment really is, we need to rewind. Lamine Yamal made his Barcelona debut at 15 years old. 15! Most kids that age are worrying about exams. He was already sharing a locker room with grown men, and instead of shrinking under the pressure, he thrived. By 16, he was starting for Spain. By 17, he had already become the youngest player in history to win a major international trophy, lifting the European Championship the day after his birthday in the summer of 2024. That alone would have been enough for most careers. A teenager, a continental title, and a highlight reel that looked like it belonged to a 10-year veteran. But Yamal never treated it like a finish line. He kept getting better. He kept winning trophies with Barcelona. He kept climbing the rankings for the Ballon d'Or, finishing as a runner-up to one of the best players on the planet at an age when most players haven't even cracked a first team. And then came 2026, the World Cup on home turf for football's biggest rival nations, hosted across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. This was supposed to be the tournament where Yamal announced himself to the entire world, not just to those who follow European football closely. It very nearly didn't happen the way anyone expected. Yamal tore his hamstring in April, just weeks before the tournament, and there were real doubts about whether the kid carrying the hopes of a nation would even be fit to play. He missed Spain's tournament opener, but when he came back, he didn't come back cautious. He scored his first World Cup goal against Saudi Arabia within 10 minutes of getting on the pitch, dropped to his knees, and gave the world one of the moments of the tournament. From there, Spain marched, a statement win over Belgium in the quarterfinals, a defensive masterclass against France in the semi-final, with Yamal drawing the foul that led directly to the opening goal. And now, Spain stands in the final, one win away from their second World Cup title in history, 16 years after their first. So let's actually sit with this question. What if he does it? What if Lamine Yamal lifts the World Cup at 19 years old? First, understand what that would mean historically. Pelé won his first World Cup at 17, and that record has stood as the gold standard for prodigious greatness for almost 70 years. Yamal wouldn't quite beat that specific number, but he would be doing something arguably harder. Pelé played in an era with far less tactical sophistication, far less scouting, far less physical preparation thrown at teenage talents to shut them down. Yamal is doing this in the modern game, against defenses built with sports science, video analysis, and coaching staffs whose entire job is to nullify exactly the kind of talent he represents. Winning a World Cup as a teenager in 2026 is in some ways a heavier achievement than doing it in 1958. Second, think about what it does to the debate that fans have argued about for over a decade. Messi versus Ronaldo. Now imagine a headline that isn't part of that conversation at all, a headline that starts a brand new conversation. If Yamal wins this World Cup, he immediately enters the discussion of the most complete young footballer the sport has ever produced. Not one of the best young players, the best, full stop. Because a Ballon d'Or nomination is impressive. A Euro title is impressive, but a World Cup at 19 as a driving creative force rather than a passenger, that's the kind of achievement that rewrites where a player's ceiling actually is. Third, consider Barcelona. Imagine what a World Cup champion, still only 19 years old, returns to pre-season looking like. Every transfer rumor intensifies. Every club with money would be dreaming about what it would take to pry him away, even knowing the answer is almost certainly nothing at any price. His commercial value, already enormous, would go into a different stratosphere entirely. Boot deals, sponsorships, global campaigns, the kind of attention that turned Neymar and Mbappé into global brands as much as footballers would land on Yamal's shoulders, except he would be walking into it with a World Cup medal that neither of them had at his age. And fourth, and this is the part that matters most to the neutral fan, the part that isn't about business or branding, think about what it means for Spain. This nation last won the World Cup in 2010, with a golden generation built around Iniesta, Xavi, and Casillas, players who had grown up together for a decade before that triumph. If Spain wins in 2026, it will be a completely different kind of story. A next generation led by a teenager who wasn't even born when Spain lifted that first trophy, carrying the torch forward. It would mean the culture of Spanish football, the possession, the patience, the technical obsession, has produced not just one golden generation, but two, 16 years apart, with the second one arguably starting even younger and even more spectacularly than the first. Now we have to be be fair here, because football history is littered with young stars who were supposed to define an era and didn't quite get there, at least not on schedule. Injuries change careers. Pressure crushes some players who looked unbreakable at 18. There's also a very real football argument that winning a World Cup doesn't happen alone. Yamal has one goal in this tournament, and some critics have already pointed out that his direct goal contributions have been modest compared to the hype. He himself has said publicly that nobody will care about personal statistics if Spain lifts the trophy, and there's a maturity in that answer that a lot of much older players never develop. But it's a fair reminder that even a World Cup win here would be in part a team achievement being layered onto an individual legend, the same way it always has been for every great champion in this sport's history. There's also the matter of what comes next. Winning at 19 creates its own kind of pressure. Every tournament after this one will be measured against it. Every dip in form will be framed as what happened to Yamal instead of normal football variants. History shows us that the players who handle that kind of expectation best are often the ones who treat the first trophy as a beginning, not a peak. If Yamal wins on Sunday, the story doesn't end there. In many ways, it only just begins. So here's where we land. If Lamine Yamal walks off that pitch as a World Cup champion, Spanish football will have produced, arguably, the youngest complete great the game has ever seen. Player with a European championship and a World Cup before his 20th birthday, doing it not as a bystander, but as one of the central figures driving his team there. Whether that's enough to call him the greatest of all time is a conversation for another 10 years down the line. But it would absolutely be enough to say this: we are watching history happen in real time, and years from now, people are going to tell their kids they remember exactly where they were when Lamine Yamal became a world champion. That's the story, that's the what if, and by the time some of you are watching this, it might not even be a what if anymore, it might just be history. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let us know in the comments what you think happens on final day. Hit subscribe for more deep dives into the moments shaping football history, and we'll see you in the next one. This has been Football History TV. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let us know in the comments what you think happens on final day. Hit subscribe for more deep dives into the moments shaping football history, and we'll see you in the next one. This has been Football History TV.